Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart, and this time we are talking about Donkey Kong. More specifically, what's going on with Donkey Kong Country's 30th anniversary. The original Donkey Kong Country came out in November of 1994, and over the last few weeks we've been enjoying some level of 30th anniversary celebrations. But something recently has come up that has left many fans baffled. And that is these graphical changes that we are seeing in the latest bit of footage for Donkey Kong Country Returns HD. What's going on with these changes, and what's going on with Nintendo's overall plan regarding Donkey Kong? Are there more to these 30th anniversary plans? Is there more big Donkey Kong things on the horizon? That's what we're getting into today. But before going forward, let me ask that if you do enjoy my content, to please subscribe and hit that notification bell. And if you're unsure, watch through this video and then consider subscribing and hitting that bell. So Nintendo certainly has been doing some things to celebrate the 30th anniversary for Donkey Kong. We got to see an update on the Donkey Kong expansion to Super Nintendo World with that Super Nintendo World Direct just a couple weeks ago. They have released Donkey Kong Land 1 and 2 for Nintendo Switch Online over the last week or so as well. And now we have this new trailer pointing out the different Donkey Kong Country games on Nintendo Switch, including some new footage for Country Returns HD, which is launching January 16th of 2025. And when we take a look at this footage, we do see changes over the original trailer. Overall, the game is looking sharp, more vibrant. There does appear to be some new textures in some different places. The water effects in certain areas look pretty good. The animated attacks from this boss encounter have been fixed up, and the cutscenes seem to have been improved somewhat as well. But upon closer inspection, there have also been some oddities that fans have noticed. For example, during this shot right here, we can see that there's some obvious pop-in as Donkey Kong is launching through the barrel to the background. Or here in this shot, the background trees don't look nearly as good, and the colors of the sunset appear to be more subdued. Some have even noticed how some scenes with water in the background appear to be more simplified even compared to the original release. Although, as we mentioned earlier, there are other parts that seem to have some pretty good water visuals. And what perhaps may be the most blatant downgrade over the first bit of footage we have for this game is Donkey Kong's fur. During this quick clip right here, you can see that Donkey Kong's fur seems to be quite voluminous and there's movement there. But in this updated footage, it's missing a lot of that. So what's going on here? This is the second time Nintendo has done some sort of enhanced port of this game. They initially ported this game over to Nintendo 3DS with some quality of life updates and new content, and those quality of life updates and new content like the new levels are going to be in this newer remaster that does overall have improved visuals, but we are seeing some odd things with the visuals. And it's leading a lot of people to be concerned about this release. Is this a high quality remaster, or is this more of a quick port job that is just being done as filler content as we wait for Nintendo to be ready for the Switch 2? Well, as a Donkey Kong fan who wants to see celebration of the Donkey Kong franchise, including more on this Donkey Kong Country 30th anniversary, but also an eventual new game to come to Nintendo Switch or Nintendo Switch 2 depending on the timing of things, I don't want Nintendo doing any poor efforts when it comes to Donkey Kong. And I don't think they intend to. I think the intent behind everything Donkey Kong is to come with the quality. I don't think Nintendo would be picking Donkey Kong to be the first expansion to Super Nintendo World if they didn't have some big plans for Donkey Kong's future. Donkey Kong is certainly important for Nintendo's history, but I also think that there is more on the horizon. I do think that there is a big new Donkey Kong game that Nintendo has been working on, and we've discussed some of this in the past. I actually personally speculate that it might be a 3D Donkey Kong game, and it's something that maybe they were initially intending to put on Nintendo Switch, but given how things have panned out throughout the generation, this is ultimately a project that they are saving for Switch 2, and we'll see it sometime during the next few years of the beginning of Switch 2. That's my theory on that matter. And when it comes to Country Returns HD, I don't think the intent is just to do a quick, easy port and not really pay any proper respect to the Donkey Kong franchise. No, I think with this idea of a bigger Donkey Kong game in the works coming a little bit later down the road, Nintendo wants to build some good faith here, some momentum in the Donkey Kong IP. And so how do you do that? You have the park, you have Donkey Kong's involvement with the movies, you do have these different re-releases through Nintendo Switch Online, you have this 30th anniversary celebration, and you also have a quality remaster in Country Returns HD. Now, if Country Returns HD ends up not being the most celebrated remaster of all time, it isn't the end of the world for the future of Donkey Kong. But what I'm basically getting at here is I don't think that Country Returns HD is going to be considered a bad remaster once we see it released in January. Let's remind ourselves that when we see footage on games, oftentimes it's not final footage, there can be changes, and we have seen changes in this footage compared to the first trailer. We have seen improvements. Now there are some things where there have been downgrades, and it's certainly confusing, but I do think there is an overall effort to make this game look better, and we will see that by the time the game comes out in January. And so what I'm ultimately arguing here is I think we should temper our expectations, not doom and gloom, and just assume that what we're seeing here are permanent downgrade changes. What we might be seeing are simply certain clips that are older, and they've simply been mixed into this trailer. What a lot of people aren't talking about right now, and I think it is worth noting, is that this trailer, this new footage for Country Returns HD, is just a small segment towards the end of this overall trailer that's just showing off the different Donkey Kong Country games on Nintendo Switch. And what I think is also worth noting here, and probably the bigger point to be made, is that this trailer isn't the trailer that's being pushed on all the different media channels from Nintendo. This wasn't something shared by Nintendo of America or Nintendo of Japan from Twitter. This isn't something you see on Nintendo's main YouTube pages. This is something that I actually had some trouble finding when I first heard news of it. This overall Donkey Kong franchise trailer came from Nintendo of UK. And just to put things into perspective here, rounding up, the Nintendo of UK Twitter page has 692,000 followers. Nintendo of America's Twitter page has 13.9 million followers. The difference in popularity here is overwhelming. And so the point I'm making is not to throw any shade towards Nintendo of UK, no, not at all, but this is a smaller little thing. I don't think we are meant to look that deeply into this trailer. This isn't like the next big trailer for Donkey Kong Country Returns HD. I think this is just a little bit of footage that has gotten out of there from some assets that the marketing team had available from Nintendo of UK. Like literally, they might have just had a folder of different clips of Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, and they pulled some together, perhaps from different builds of the game, and put it together for this little celebration of the overall Donkey Kong Country franchise being playable on Nintendo Switch. And so ultimately my point here is that I don't think we should look too deeply into this little bit of footage. There are some improvements, there are some downgrades, and until we start seeing some final builds of the game, maybe with previews and such, we shouldn't be jumping to conclusions. And for the sake of discussion, let's just operate under the assumption that what we have seen here is how the game is going to look in its final build when it comes out in January. A lot of these differences are very subtle that you only notice upon closer inspection and when you do these side-by-side comparisons. When you're just looking at this footage without this eye for extra scrutiny, it just looks like a fun Donkey Kong Country game. And so when it comes out in January, be it with improved visuals or not, as long as the gameplay is running well and it looks sharper and basically the same as prior versions of the game, with all the added extra content from the 3DS version but looking more modern, but obviously matching up to the overall look for this modern version of the game, I think it's going to be fine. I think it's going to be a decent remaster that most people are going to be content with. And so I'm not concerned. Do I hope that some of these weird downgrades and issues are rectified by the final build? Absolutely. And I think this is all just a stepping stone towards bigger Donkey Kong things later down the road. But what do you all think? Let me know in the comments below. This is AndresRestart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.